Following the invention of radio and television, both mediums went ahead in leaps and bounds. One early media family had close connections to Western Australia, and more particularly, an important role in broadcasting here and overseas. Conrad Charlton was the first voice on ABC Radio, and his sons Michael and Tony were TV broadcasting pioneers. Tony as a sports commentator on commercial television and Michael on ABC TV. On July 1, 1932, Conrad Charlton was the first voice on the ABC, announced, "This is the Australian Broadcasting Commission," before introducing then Prime Minister Joseph Lyons to launch the national broadcaster.
This is the Australian Broadcasting Commission, relaying throughout Australia the opening night of the newly constituted Australian Broadcasting Commission.
The Australian Broadcasting Commission, ABC, was formed through the Australian Broadcasting Commission Act 1932 to take over the programming duties of the private Australian Broadcasting Company and manage the National Broadcasting Service. The broadcaster was initially modelled on the British Broadcasting Company, BBC, and primarily funded through listener licence fees.
This service, the ABC, now belongs to you, a national service in which we hope every Australian will take pride.
There are the bombs. I can see them leaving the aircraft at this very moment.
For the defence of this Commonwealth.
Men from Australia, Britain, India, Poland.
It's ball well pitched, Blevin moves forward, drives. Continent cover tries to...
This is the story of the great big giant.
Radio Australia, if you'd like to join us.
This is a very happy crowd. They're mad with excitement.
A quarter of a century later, Conrad Charlton's son Michael became the first face on ABC television when it started in 1956.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children. This emblem that you've just seen is tonight the symbol of a historic occasion. The opening of the national television service, which of course is your television service. And we hope that tonight and in the weeks and years to come that you're going to see and enjoy a lot more of it on ABN2, ABN Channel 2. And my name is Michael Charlton, and I'm your host here tonight. I'm here to welcome you and show you around and let you meet a few of the people who are going to make this service tick. And we're going to show you something too of how we bring these people, the entertainers, to your homes, how we bring them to that small, bright screen in your living room that you're watching now, or perhaps as many of you are doing, looking through shop windows of television screens in the street. It's to be the job of the ABC to show you Australia through its cameras, to show you its people, its way of life, its great occasions, its sport, its towns, and its cities. And much of that work, particularly in the fields of sport and great occasions, will depend on the ABC outside broadcast unit. Now, they're those gaily coloured vans that you've probably seen racing all over Sydney. This afternoon, when we were setting up equipment for the programme that you're watching at present, we recorded what we saw. And here it is with a sporting commentator whose name you probably all know already from the Sound Broadcasting, Brian McKenna. So it's over to you, Brian.
Right now, I'm looking down from the top of a tall building in King's Cross, and this is what's below me. There's our outside broadcasting van being moved into the site for tonight's opening program. As you can see, the men are working on it, and in fact, there's one of our cameras being carried out. This van is the nerve center of our program. To it lead the camera cables, and from it comes the signal that's directed up to the top of this building to the microwave link on the roof. And here's where I am beside the link. And I've got to use this sort of microphone because there's a lot of noise up here, mainly caused by the wind. And from this link at King's Cross, the signal, that's the picture, moves over the King's Cross roofs themselves, past the graving dock, across the harbour, past Woolloomooloo. There's my Port Denison with Mossman and the other suburbs in the background, and from there across to the bridge. And between those pylons at the northern end, the signal passes to our transmitter at Gore Hill.
Now, over at Gore Hill on the North Shore, we have something called a telecine unit. Now, this is something that looks like a huge refrigerator. You'll be seeing it in a minute. And that's the machine that sends out all the film that you'll be watching. All the transcribed programs from television organizations overseas, film of plays, newsreels, and so on, comes from this machine. Well, we thought you might like to have a look at it. John West is waiting in the telecine room over at Gore Hill to show it to us, so we're coming to you, telecine.
Well, this is the machine, all of it, and here's the man who runs it, Don Crowley. Good evening, everybody. The film you see goes in here. Don has just finished adjusting it, and on the piece of film which he's threaded up, there are two items. So I think we might let you see telecine at work without any further ado. The first item is by Christian Ferras, the world-famous violinist and recent ABC celebrity artist. He's left the country now, of course, but before he left, he recorded this contribution to our opening night program. It's a little gavotte by Bach. We'll see it on this screen here. Now you have a look. You ready, Don? Yes, it's right then. Roll telecine.
Where's the sound? All right, what happened here? No sound. Oh, dear.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have shown you some telecine you haven't heard. These are the things that go wrong on opening night programs the world over. Of course, you know, a setup as complicated as this opening night program of ours. In a setup, as I was saying, is complicated in this opening night program of ours. There are bound to be a few little moments of panic and tension. We're having one right now.
Later, Michael Charlton was the co-creator of Four Corners. Four Corners remains Australia's premier investigative journalism and current affairs documentary program. It has been exposing scandals, triggering inquiries, and holding power to account since premiering in August 1961. In August 1961, Four Corners debuted on Australian TV with a staff of just 6 and a weekly budget of £480.
This is Dalton House, the Treasury building in Sydney, and it's 4:minutes on budget day. And in a moment I'm going to go through that door and it's going to shut on me and all the financial writers that you see walking in behind me, whose stories will be appearing in the press tomorrow morning.
Four Corners hit him like a sledgehammer. Here was a program that didn't start with dancing girls and tinsel and stars and all that. It started with people talking, and it was serious.
So here we go for the next 4 hours. Locked in.
In 1963, Michael Charlton was the recipient of the Australian Gold Logie Award. Another son, Tony Charlton, made his name as a legendary sport commentator on commercial TV, part of the inaugural Channel 9 team covering the '56 Olympics, calling the first televised VFL match on Channel 7, and hosting the Tony Charlton Football Show on Channel 9, and called football on ABC TV in the 1970s. Prior to his entertainment career, the father Conrad Charlton served as a second lieutenant with the New Zealand military forces, where he suffered serious injuries in France during the Battle of the Somme. After being wounded in World War I, Conrad Charlton came to Australia in 1921. Upon arriving, he made his stage debut with Fuller's Theatres in the pantomime Dick Whittington during the 1921 to 1922 season. From 1923 to 1924, Charlton featured prominently in revues with the Town Topics Company, where he established himself as a baritone singer. From 1927 to 1929, Conrad Charlton served as a member of J.C. Williamson's Operetta Company, touring Australia and New Zealand in light opera productions, which further highlighted his skills as a baritone singer. As work dried up at the start of the Great Depression, his deep baritone voice secured him announcing work with the Australian Broadcasting Company, a small, privately owned network from which the ABC as a commission was formed. Encouraged by Basil Kirk, the general manager of the Australian Broadcasting Company, Charlton joined Station 2BL in Sydney in 1930 as an early morning announcer, community singing leader, and racing commentator. His multifaceted role at 2BL marked his initial foray into broadcasting, where he quickly adapted his vocal talents to the medium's demands. In September 1931, Charlton expanded his contributions by delivering talks on poultry and pigeons on sister station 2FC, continuing these broadcasts until April 1933. Concurrently, from 1930 to 1936, he served as studio manager at 2FC, overseeing operations and contributing to the station's programming stability during a formative period for Australian radio. Early recognition of Charlton's rising profile came in December 1931, when he was caricatured in Smith's Weekly as one of Sydney's notable radio personalities, highlighting his growing prominence in the industry. In 1932, Charlton provided live coverage of the Sydney Harbour Bridge opening, reporting the dramatic interruption by equestrian protester Francis de Groot, who cut the ribbon before Premier Jack Lang.
The sensations were provided by Captain de Groot of the New Guard. De Groot slashed the ceremonial ribbon with his sword before he was grabbed by police. There's quite a scuffle. The captain is knocked from his horse. Then, minus his cap and sword, he is led away. The ribbon is tied together again. After all, this is the opening of a £9 million bridge, and the Premier has to be able to do the job properly. As he cuts the ribbon, another in the center of the bridge explodes. Ferries toot their sirens and the procession starts. And what a carnival it is! Bands, floats, then the crowd surged across, thousands of them. You'll notice most of them are on foot.
The origins of the ABC in Perth trace back to commercial station 6WF, which began broadcasting on June 4, 1924. It was established by the Westralian Farmers Cooperative, Wesfarmers, to combat the intense isolation felt by regional and rural Western Australians. 6WF's ownership was transferred to the Postmaster General's Department from late 1928 when Westralian Farmers sold its interests to the Commonwealth Government for £7,000 and provided with programs by the Australian Broadcasting Company. The Australian Broadcasting Company, 1929 to 1932, period coincided with the Great Depression, a severe worldwide economic downturn, which started in 1929 and continued until the industrial effort for World War II lifted the economy out of the doldrums. In 1930, the 6WF operation moved from the Wesfarmers building to the first floor of the English, Scottish and Australian Bank building at the corner of Hay and Milligan Street, Perth. Under WA manager Basil Kirk's direction, 6WF extended its programs and introduced new features. The value of this was shown by the rapid increase in licenses, so that after 3 years, the company had increased the licenses from 3,900 to 12,500. The Australian Broadcasting Commission was founded in 1932, and 6WF became part of the national network. Conrad Charlton took over as station manager of 6WF and Western Australia branch manager in May 1936, replacing Basil Kirk, who took over management of the Victorian branch. His first major assignment, given him by General Manager Charles Moses, was to broadcast the Perth Anzac Day ceremony Australia-wide.
Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, I lost my Matilda all over. Then in 1915 the country sits up, it's time to stop roving, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and they gave me a gun, and they sent me away to the war.
Charlton's wife Hazel was heavily involved in the art scene in Perth. She chaired the committee established to present the People's Patriotic Concerts for the Australian Broadcasting Commission. She was also president of the Perth Symphony Orchestral Committee from its inception in 1939 to October 1947. People's Patriotic Concerts were historical community events presented in Australia during World War II to raise funds for war efforts. Organised in cooperation with the Australian Broadcasting Commission, these musical performances featured local orchestras and choirs. In Western Australia, a notable committee chaired by Hazel Charlton was formed to manage these events. One such massive event took place at the Western Australian Cricket Association grounds in Perth on February 29, 1940. She was also a trained soprano who was a major figure in Perth's classical music scene, and on occasion took leading roles in concert versions of opera. She trained the Oriana Choir of 35 women and founded and directed for many years the Sicilians, an elite choir of 7 women that were highly prominent in the Western Australian performing arts and broadcasting scene. She also trained the choir of Scotch College, Perth, which their sons attended. The ABC studios and 6WF moved again in 1937 to the Returned Soldiers Institute, also known as the Stirling Institute on St. George's Terrace, behind the Department of Agriculture, and located in what was once the state's only botanical gardens, Stirling Gardens, west of the Government House Ballroom and north of the Supreme Court buildings. The building was erected 21 years earlier, and became the headquarters of the WA branch of the Returned Sailors and Soldiers Imperial League of Australia, RSL, in 1918. Despite the fact the building had been built 21 years earlier as a temporary structure, it became the home of 6WF for the next 23 years. The ABC in Perth managed for many years with substandard accommodation until purpose-built facilities were constructed for both radio and for the introduction of public-owned television in Western Australia in 1960.
ABC radio and television studios were built on the site of a 2-story residence named Rosehill, once the home to George Frederick Stone, formerly an Attorney General, and his son, Edward Stone, formerly a Chief Justice and Lieutenant Governor of Western Australia. The house was demolished in 1954, and work on the new studios began in 1958 at 191 Adelaide Terrace in Perth, extending through to Terrace Road on the River End. ABC Radio moved to the new facilities in 1959, which faced Adelaide Terrace, whilst work continued on the television building, located on the lower part of the site, facing Terrace Road. Finally, on Saturday, May 7, 1960, ABW Channel 2 was launched, providing Perth with 2 television stations. The ABC began their service with an outside broadcast van, which allowed live coverage from beyond the studio, with ABW introducing the viewing public to sports telecasts as early as the trade transmissions, which commenced on the 19th of April 1960.
On Saturday, May 7, 1960, ABW Channel 2 in Perth opened. Much of the credit for the ABC building in Adelaide Terrace goes to Basil Kirk, who returned to Western Australia as manager in 1952 and lobbied tirelessly for new offices and studios. He fell seriously ill in 1957 and died in 1958, before the move to the new premises took place. In 1961, the large orchestral Studio 620 was named in his honour. The Australian Broadcasting Commission became the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC, on July 1, 1983, following the passage of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation Act 1983. These buildings lasted 45 years, until it was decided that new buildings were needed. A site was commissioned and the ABC moved to its new offices and studios in East Perth in March 2005. The Adelaide Terrace site was sold to property developers in 2008. Meanwhile, earlier in 1947, Conrad Charlton took over running the ABC in Melbourne as his son Michael was forging his way on radio in Sydney. Michael Charlton was a popular announcer and highly regarded cricket commentator when he was chosen to host the opening night television broadcast on ABN2 in Sydney. Later, Michael Charlton was hired by the BBC, enjoying a long and impressive career. From 1962 to 1976, Michael was a reporter and interviewer for Panorama, reporting live from America in the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination. In July 1969, he reported live from Mission Control for the BBC during the Apollo 11 moon landing. Later, during the 1980s, he presented It's Your World, a phone-in program on the BBC World Service. He also presented the news and current affairs program Newsday on BBC Two in the 1970s. His exclusive interview with exiled Soviet dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn made international headlines in 1976. Younger brother Tony Charlton began his career at Melbourne radio station 3AW, calling football matches, until he moved to Channel 9 to cover the 1956 Summer Olympics. The following year he joined Channel 7 as a commentator for the first televised Victorian Football League matches. In 1960 he was lured back to Channel 9, where he hosted the Tony Charlton Football Show, a program broadcast on Sunday afternoons in competition with Channel 7's World of Sport. Whilst with GTV Channel 9 in Melbourne, Tony helped provide commentary for the 1962 Commonwealth and Empire Games in Perth, with TVW Channel 7 as the host commercial television broadcaster. During his career he covered a diverse range of major sports events. Notable televised events that he hosted included the Royal Charity Concert for Queen Elizabeth II at the Sydney Opera House in 1980, a broadcast from Gallipoli for Australia in 1988, the VP Day 50th anniversary in 1995 and the Caltech Sports Star of the Year over a period of 30 years. For more than 25 years, Tony was MC for Anzac Day ceremonies at the Shrine of Remembrance. He was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, in 1990. In 2001 he was awarded the Centenary Medal. In 2003 he was upgraded within the Order of Australia to member level, AM, for service to the community through the organisation and promotion of fundraising events to support a range of health, research, rehabilitation and veteran groups in Australia. In 2011 he was inducted into the Australian Football Hall of Fame. In May 1953, his father Conrad Charlton retired from the ABC, and in September 1954 he was appointed Public Relations Officer for the Age newspaper. Sadly, the father Conrad Charlton died in 1976, at the age of 88. Tony Charlton died in 2012, aged 83. And Michael Charlton passed away peacefully at his home in Richmond, London, on August 24, 2025, at the age of 98. Much has happened to the ABC since then. There has been considerable cost-cutting, with dramatic staff reductions. The organisation comes under regular criticism from various sectors. Some considering it too left-wing, whilst others are thankful for it being an alternate voice to the right-wing media. The electronic media is now under new threats from internet-based alternates, which offer content on demand at the audience's convenience. The ABC was fast to adapt to many of these new concepts, often having been more innovative than the commercial media in the past. There are sure to be many more challenges in the future, so it's important that the organisation remains capable of meeting them.